iRacing.
Regional pride is very much a thing in motorsports, but areas such as the Southwest, the Northeast, and the Midwest have lots of tracks to choose from. Northwest racers and fans can finally rejoice because their premier circuit, Portland, is finally on iRacing. And tonight, bragging rights and a cool $500 are on the line as we get ready to watch the inaugural Portland Virtual Grand Prix. You'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Rouse Racing driver Joey Atterbury. And behind the scenes is our director, Daniel Costello, being assisted by Christian Duploy. They're using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Having seen a wide swath of racing series visit, this track is surprisingly versatile. Let's get a closer look at it with our track guy. Welcome to Portland International Raceway. Located on the north side of Portland, Oregon, and right next to the Columbia River, the track is known as the premier racing circuit in the Pacific Northwest. It's by no means a very long circuit, with its two layouts clocking in just shy of 2 miles, or just over 3 kilometers in length. Depending on which one you choose, it has 9 or 12 corners to navigate over the lap. In the chicane version, the Shelton chicane absolutely smacks you in the face and presents the best passing opportunity. But watch out on lap 1, because these bends are notorious for causing messy pileups. Turns 4, 5, and 6 will take you on a sweeping ride, but they spit you out into the extremely important turn 7. This hairpin does offer chances to pass if you're sneaky, but it's more notable for the fact it leads onto the long backstretch. Failing to get a good exit out of there will leave you incredibly vulnerable. This is where the track reveals some of its roots as a street course, with this curved stretch formerly being Vanport Road. Hug that wall on the right because you're going to need every inch of track on your way into the chicane of 10 and 11. This switchback catches out many drivers of all skill levels due to its speed and the fact it requires you to set up for the final turn pretty much immediately. Make sure not to get too much wheel spin as you ease back onto the pit straight and you've finished a lap. With IMSA, SCCA, IndyCar, Formula E, and NASCAR all having raced here, there's an impressive variety of motorsports disciplines in its history. Considering no other major racing tracks are remotely close by, PIR is king of the roost in the Northwest, and one loved by fans across the country. I'm glad I have you with me on this one, Joey, because from what I understand, you have personal experience with this circuit.
Yeah, I know this circuit extremely well, especially with Spec Miata racing that I kind of grew up doing in the Northwest here. So it's very cool to see Portland International Raceway here on iRacing. And let's take a look at the track map. It is 12 turns and 1.96 miles in length. It is a fast and flowing circuit out here. The two slowest corners look towards the chicane, turns 1 and 2, and then also towards turn number 7. That's kind of the corner that leads out onto the back straightaway there. Those are the two slowest areas. Your best passing opportunity, definitely turn 1 off of that long front straightaway because you've got the big brake zone. But look towards the end of the track map on the bottom right, that turn 9, 10, 11, and 12 down there. It is so fast to come off of the back straightaway, and turns 9 and 10 is extremely fast. Call it a left-right chicane. Here it is, 10, 11 on this map. And then turn 12 down there, the right-hander to lead you out onto the front straightaway. It's always a little bit tricky. You'll see a lot of drivers use the access road off to the left to kind of open up the turn radius on the beginning half of the corner. But you also have to be careful because it kind of pinches you getting onto the drag strip. It's such an important turn as it leads down into that brake zone of turn 1.
So we'll see who can adapt to it, and they'll need to quickly because it's only been out a couple weeks. Now, before we get to the racing, we do want to mention our sponsor, which is the Sherwin Williams Company. It's an American paints and coatings company based in Cleveland, Ohio. It is primarily engaged in the manufacture, distribution, and sale of paints, coatings, floor coverings, and related products, with operations in over 120 countries. So a big thank you goes to Sherwin Williams, helping make this broadcast happen tonight. And we're in the midst of the practice session before they head off into a short qualifying here to try and decide things. But Joey, it feels like the Northwest community has really rallied around this being finally on the service. Because, when I say this is the Northwest track, I don't think people from elsewhere realize you guys have nothing else close by but this place.
Well, now hang on. We got a few other tracks, but you're right. In terms of professional road racing, at least current modern day, the Xfinity Series comes to Portland. IndyCar still goes to Portland, but there was a little bit of a hiatus before. There was ALMS racing there. Now there is Pacific Raceways or Seattle International Raceways up here in the Seattle area that they have the NHRA tracks every year, and they also have a road course. But you're right. I think if you're looking for a quote-unquote professional road course, you're looking towards Portland International Raceway here, and it is a fantastic track. They've got the Rose Cup races every single summer out there. They'll be coming up here. I believe they're in July or so, and that's probably Portland's largest race that's outside of the pro events.
And the other thing about the importance of this place is actually FIA Grade 2, so one step below the highest it can earn. Formula E has even raced there, so it is a very highly rated track in a number of ways, as we see the ARCA cars take to it tonight. So this should be fun, getting to see American stock cars try to tackle a relatively simple road course compared to many around the world, but still tricky in its own right, no doubt. And as you were talking about, the drag strip that they've got here on this main straight definitely allows them to get some pretty big speeds up into that first chicane.
And what's cool about Portland is, here we're running the chicane version, but they also do run the no chicane version as well. So it's cool to kind of have both of them available. And the chicane just adds a whole lot more passing opportunity as the turn 4 brake zone down here at the end of that straightaway. It's incredibly fast, call it double apex sweeping right-hander. So having the chicane here at PIR, I think, is a good thing.
We got Lyndon Cho's onboard view here coming through the first half of the lap, and then the ever-critical turn 7 onto the main straight as the car has to get woed up, and then he gets on the throttle. Look at him get that wheel spin as he tries to get down there, and even coming up through the gears, it looks like he's having trouble just trying to get the power translated to the pavement. So it's going to be a struggle today, no doubt, in these cars. That makes me wonder, Joey, how much the tire management will be a critical factor in today's race.
Huge. So if we think about power down traction events, turn 1, 2 chicane, obviously, right? You're standing hard on the brakes, getting it really down low in terms of that speed, and then you have to use those rear tires to propel yourself out of that slow chicane. And then turn number 7, it's a doozy of a corner. It was part of the track redesign. Oh gosh, what was this, like 15 years ago now? I raced on a pre-turn 7 redesign, and then also, of course, what we have here in this current scan. But the current scan, you really have to get the traction, the power down coming out of turn number 7, and that's exactly where we saw Lyndon kind of slip up on that previous lap there. So that's the corner that leads you all the way down that long back straightaway. But what's out of turn number 7 is that long curved back straightaway. It is not straight, and if you don't take care of your rear tires in these big V8 cars, I wouldn't doubt to see them start to slip and slide around, especially up through third gear.
If you're looking at the names on the list here on our tower, and some of them seem familiar, that's because they actually have some ARCA and NASCAR drivers that are competing here this evening. Otherwise, it's mainly a lot of the Northwest Club drivers that are going to try and celebrate the opening of this track. They've only had it for a couple weeks, but same can be said for this ARCA car. It's new to the service on this latest build, so everybody's going to be just a little bit green, and today is going to be a little bit more about who can adapt quickly.
Thankfully, Portland is a relatively easy racetrack to learn. Sector 1, I need to toss out the chicane, right? Let's just throw away the chicane, but call it Sector 1 is just fast-flowing, sweeping corners, so it's just kind of getting into the rhythm of things. And then off of the back straightaway where we watch Max Schroeder here, that's the fast turn 9 and 10 complex, and then leads into turn 12 here, that final right-hand corner. But once again, those are all, call it medium to high-speed corners. So there's not too much really slow stuff here at Portland. It's a very flowing racetrack.
Very much so. It's kind of old school in that sense. Also a bit unique in that it started life as a street circuit and then was adapted into this purpose-built race course. It was changed into this essentially, but some of the roads do still exist in this layout. The backstretch particularly is one of those stretches that is the same as it was back then, and I do love that they kept that, and especially kept the water to the inside to make it sort of that unique feature as you fly along the trees and the pond there along that back straightaway. Boy, some of these drivers certainly struggling with that turn 7. So I get the feeling that'll be a big place to watch out for during the race.
Yeah, highlight turn 7, definitely. And it's a doozy going into it in that kind of static shot. You saw how wide the entry of it was. So it invites a driver to dive it down towards that apex and turn in early, but that's exactly what you don't want to do when you've got the corner leading out onto that very long back straightaway. So it's a tale of two sides, right? Do you go down diving towards the apex to try to potentially grab away a position from somebody with a late lunge, or you really kind of take it easy in the first half of the corner to propel you down that long back straightaway, which ultimately gets you the lap time?
Well, they'll only have themselves to worry about in just a moment. It is a lone qualifying. They get a total of 10 minutes, and 3 laps max will count towards their qualifying effort. Once they use those 3 laps, then everything beyond that will not count. They can continue on and keep trying to put some practice laps in, but they will not be registered with the sim. So you got to get it done, and you got to make it happen without mistakes. If you go off track in qualifying in iRacing, it is automatic. There is no debating it. The lap is deleted. So keep it within the boundaries here today, as it looks like we got the cars hopping out on track for this qualifying session. And let's take a look now at how this race will also go, Joey.
Yeah, we're in here for this Portland Virtual Grand Prix. 30 laps is what we're going to be doing around this, call it 2-mile circuit. We are in those brand new ARCA Menards Series cars that everybody's so excited about. And then we're going to be dealing with fixed setups. What does fixed setups mean? It basically means spec racing. You can't tweak and tune anything on that car, from tire pressures to ride heights or anything. It is the same exact equipment for every single driver out there. One spare car. So if you go barreling into somebody or collect yourself into a wall, you do have a spare car sitting down there in pit road. You just got to make it there before you can actually hop into it. There are some cautions, it looks like, in tonight's event. I'll be curious to see how that goes over. And then 1 overtime attempt. So we're in for some cool race control as well.
Absolutely, yeah. In regards to that caution, that is not for any accident. They are only looking for one that has either 3 or more cars, or that can cause a track blockage. So if we have a massive pileup, that's when you can expect to see those yellows. But I feel like that's probably most common here at the start of the race, that we might see that. Once they get spread out, it'll be less likely that we'll see the race paused out here. Drivers now starting their first flying lap on the track. Almost everybody has been able to take their out lap around here, and this is where it starts to count.
So call it 7 minutes and 50 seconds left here in that qualifying session. And yeah, we should be getting those times pretty much as soon as this group of cars starts to cross that start-finish line. And they'll have, call it 3 laps that they can do. And with the fixed setup, this will be an interesting one, Joe. Typically with fixed setups, you just want to go out there and throw banker laps in. Remember, you can't go out there and put less fuel in the car than everybody else. Everybody's on the same stuff. So I'm curious, do you see one person go out there, put down a banker lap, and then try to get a fresh set of tires, or are the tires good for all 3?
That's a good question, yeah. See if anybody tries to get tricky on that one. And they'd have to do it on lap 2, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I believe that's how it should work for them, that they can come back out and try to get that third and final lap. But here's some times on the board as Aaron Smith goes provisionally fastest over Peterson by about a tenth of a second. Minute 13 for most of the quickest drivers out here today. So there's going to be small margins as we watch Eric Johnson Jr., one of the organizers of this race.
Yeah, see Eric come through and approach what is, call it turn number 6 right here. This flowing left-hander that is very, very tricky. You got to manage the throttle in that one, make sure not to get the rear end of the car too far sideways out there. And then there was that turn number 7 that we've already been talking about in practice. And as we watch Eric go down the back straightaway, looks like Brennan Gregg straight to the top of the board. An impressive lap by half a second, a 112.9 as the new carrot to chase.
Wow, that's a huge gap at a track like this. Johnson now shuffled down into 12th because of that. He's on his second lap. Let's see if this will be an improvement for him. I'm showing about half a second up, so that could easily put him into the top 10. He'll cross the line, and where does that slot him? A 114.0 becomes a 113.5. Yes, indeed, it puts him on the second row, but he messes up the chicane. That's the end of his qualifying.
Yeah, so definitely won't get lap 3 in there right there. We'll just have to settle for that, call it 113.5. Like you said, as we jump over to Andrew Johnson right here, driving this number 6 car, rounding it through what is turn number 12 here at Portland International Raceway. Kind of squirming those rear tires, trying to put the traction down. He's got a 116.4. Let's see what this lap is going to be, a 115.99. So it'll jump him up a couple spots up into 25th.
Hey, it's interesting that there's a big clump of drivers early, and then there's definitely a few that seem to be struggling because top 16 essentially split by barely just a tiny bit over 1 second between all 16 cars. And then you go farther than that, and it gets as far down as about 3.5 to 4 seconds off of pole position, which says to me, with a lap time so short, we could easily see lap traffic play a part late in the race.
100%. And lap traffic is bound to happen around this place, especially with the brake zones leading into all of these huge grassy areas. When you miss your marker, you just kind of go sailing through these big fields out there. So I have a feeling lap traffic definitely going to play a part as Aaron Smith continues to kind of be a thorn in the side. He stays inside the top 3. That last lap time, a 113.39.
Sounds like Ryan Campbell had a bit of trouble out of the final turn. Brennan Gregg is on his last lap. He's our current pole sitter, and it's still about 0.4 of a second over everybody else that is as close as they can get to him, at least. And he'll cross the line for the 3rd time, but unable to improve. So it does look like that first lap is really the one you want to nail in these cars.
Definitely seems so. So it looks like, for the most part, kind of the board is set. So we'll watch the last 3.5 minutes of qualifying, see if anybody can kind of pull one out towards the end. I will say that there are a handful of drivers that have not even taken to the racetrack yet. There are a couple forms of how you want to approach this qualifying session, and some of those drivers, they like to start from the back. Some of the drivers like to have everybody go down and set down a lap time. That way you've kind of got your standings board pulled up, know exactly how fast you got to go out there and drive.
An improvement from Iverson will jump him up to 17th, down to a 14 flat for him. Now we're checking out Christopher White. He has yet to set a time. He's only attempted 1 lap. This is number 2, and the car just squirming as he tries to put his right foot down is certainly not going to help things.
Going down the back straightaway here, let's see what top speed is, at least in qualifying. I see already 165, nearly 170 miles an hour out of these new ARCA cars here at PIR on that back straightaway. And then turn number 12 comes up so fast. Yeah, I know you got the high-speed chicane at the end of the back straightaway, but you can kind of sling the car through that one. But it's tough to keep it on the racetrack in turn number 12 here. A 115.23 is what Christopher White puts down, at least for his qualifying effort. Slots into 26th place.
All right, at least he's got one down. And if he could go any quicker, that won't hurt him all that much. He'll see if he can jump up farther. Tanner Reef has yet to set a time. Isaiah Gill and Nate Garski Look like they have not set a time yet. And then Henry Tabor as well. So certainly a couple drivers that could be starting from the back of the field. Dustin Mitchell in 32nd is on his final lap in that number 21 machine. So he'll cross the line, and it's a 1:18.4. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That'll put him in a 31st.
Minute and a half left, so it's just going to be whatever drivers are still out there scrapping together, practice, trying to get the flow of this Portland International Racetrack and get ready for this 30-lap main event here. Looks like we've got Gill here in the number 36 car, rounding around turn number 6 on this PIR circuit. Approach turn number 7 here in this, call it blue. Yeah, well, it's number 2 on the side. It's the number 36 on timing and scoring right now, and go off down onto that back straightaway.
So how much time do we have left? About a minute. Yeah, so he should be able to get at least one, and as long as he keeps it on the track, if he hasn't gone beyond the boundaries, this should count. And as he weaves through the chicane, so far so good. Now the last corner, turn 12, onto the main straight, keeps it out of the wall, and gets on the throttle. If he's any quicker than a 1:18.9, he'll do better than last on the field, and it's a 15.3. Not too shabby. That'll slot him into 27th spot.
Nicely done there, and then let's see what Tanner Reif has out here. Now, Tanner has not put down a qualifying effort, and because it is a solo qualifying session, it's not an open session. It's only got 12 seconds to make it back to the start-finish line, so I think that Tanner is going to be starting, call it based off of their iRating. All of the drivers that don't put in a qualifying time, they get grouped up towards the back of the pack and are sorted by that iRating.
Still, vast majority of the field did manage to at least get one lap on the board, so they should theoretically be at least relatively close to where they should line up today. So there is our qualifying over. Our race is ready. Let's go through our starting grid. Brennan Gregg on the pole position, flanked by Alec Bradshaw to his outside, as Aaron Smith will be on the inside of row 2, and Ryan Worley starts from 4th. You've got Chris Bouchard in 5th, followed by Eric Johnson Jr. P6. Cole Raz will start in 7th, with Marshall Peterson in 8th. Then row 5 has Frederick Ledouceur in 9th, and Maxwell Schroeder starting 10th.
In 11th, we've got Scott Twomey back here with Bryden Thomas in 12th. Ryan Vargas, fellow iRacing employee over there and commentator, starting in 13th. And then we've got Dan Twomey back here in 14th. Ryan Campbell in 15th. Brian Marsteller, I remember that name, back in 16th here. Cam Iverson in 17th. Thomas Misich, another Spec Miata guy, in 18th. David Corsel in 19th. And Zachary Jankelson in 20th.
Lyndon Cho will start from 21st, with Justin Parcher in 22nd. Then on to the next row is Jean-Philippe Bergeron in 23rd, flanked by Edgar Sancinelli. Austin Ripp will start from 25th. Christopher White will be to his side, as Isaiah Gill, we saw him put a lap good enough for 27th. Andrew Johnson next to him in 28th. You've got Troy Olesen in 29th position. And then 30th goes to Don Boatsflug.
Then in 31st, we got Tim Garski. And 32nd is going to be Dustin Mitchell in the number 21 car. Tom Winkt is going to be lined up in 33rd. Henry Tabor in 34th. And then we've got Tanner Reif back here in 35th. Looks like we've got our own broadcast team back here in 36th. And Nate Garski going to be rounding out, call it 36 cars is the amount of ARCA Menards machines here at Portland International Raceway.
That's just our camera car, so don't worry.
Oh, okay, our camera car. That's right, that's right. Like Days of Thunder out there.
Well, speaking of which, if we want to go to the number 57, Edgar Sancinelli, this has to be one of my favorite paints that we've got right now. Very much an homage to Days of Thunder, and very well painted, actually. It suits this ARCA car quite well.
Yeah, there he is right there. He's on the outside row, and it's not the mellow yellow. I think I'm reading the hood. I think it's a Frito sport car, at least in this version.
Yes, it is. So Just altered it slightly, but I mean, it's even got the correct number on it. So pretty nice for Edgar Sancinelli to get that thing ready to go. And as we head around on our pace lap, going to be just this lone pace lap, and then they will be released for the 30-lap race. Don't forget, we could potentially have full course yellows, and everybody will have to bunch back up, which could offer opportunities to maybe duck in 4 tires if drivers want to take that chance.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. I think based on the practice and what we were seeing the cars do and the drivers of how aggressive they were being, tires are certainly not going to be a bad idea. Remember, stock cars, they have a relatively small tire in terms of how large and how capable these cars are and how big the Rumbly Boy engines are underneath the hood. So if you burn them off, which is quite easy to do, especially if you've got a happy right foot, they might be your best friend on pit lane.
All right, Joey, you're the local expert here. You're talking to the drivers before they take the green. What do you tell them to watch out for in this race?
You got to survive the chicane. Step 1, survive the opening lap chicane. Step 2, survive turn number 7 on the opening lap. And then step number 3, don't throw it off on the end of the back straightaway here in the fast turns 9 and 10. So call it a 3-step path to success, and it's survive on lap 1.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme in that advice there, and I don't doubt it. This track kind of known for being a bit chaotic, especially early in the races, even in the real world. And these drivers, not all of them out there are professionals, we have to remember, but plenty of them have experience in the sim, as Greg has control of the field, although he's slowing them up, and that's backing the outside lane up quite a bit as they try not to get a black flag there. Alec Bradshaw trying to avoid getting a penalty here at the start. Now they're lined up nice and orderly. Green flag is out, and again, almost a bit of a jump from Bradshaw, and they fan out immediately coming down into turn 1. We got someone coming way up the inside from down the field, 4 wide into the chicane. Are we going to get out the other side of this without an accident? Somehow, so far so good, and yes, they managed to get through.
I think it was Squat Tuomi in the number 24 car that went up the inside. I see he's already gained 8 positions from where he started at the beginning of this race here. So, yeah, Aaron Smith and Brennan Gregg kind of leapfrogging out front, and then everybody else scrapping for the other positions.
We got a spin in the background for the 76. The 20 is going to get into the side of him. Most everybody else is going to be able to avoid, so great job on that. Although we get more 3-wide action down into turn 7. It's an almost traffic jam through there.
It is a huge funnel effect, and now we got to launch ourselves out onto this back straightaway for the first time. Remember, we saw over 170 miles an hour with the cars in qualifying, and then you got to jump on the brakes, a fast left, and then back through the right. Cars already hitting each other, and off they go. That's the number 2 and the number 13.
So that's going to be Bergeron, and can't quite make out who the other one is. I think Reith maybe, and both of them are able to successfully rejoin, hopefully without too much damage. There's Tanner all the way down to 31st, unfortunately. There's definitely been a few drivers that have lost a ton of spots at the start.
Yeah, there's always some drivers that get a little bit too antsy in the pantsy and end up falling rearward in terms of those aggressive moves, but looks like Bryden Thomas right here is starting to work his way forward. He's sitting pretty much right where he qualified right now, but he's got a group of cars directly in front of him that are starting to move their way forward too. Maybe he can kind of attach the fishing line to that back spoiler, follow him along.
So here's what happened with Bergeron. Unfortunately, it looks like
it was just too fast into turn number 9. Couldn't get it slowed down for the right-hander, so he cut the grass, and then unfortunately the number 2 was already there. It's not going to be the last time that we see that. In fact, we might be lining up for round 2 right here.
Absolutely, and I think it was Bergeron, the one who got hit way out into the grass there for Thomas. He keeps it from spinning out. There's that little access road to the outside. You can see a lot of drivers trying to use it, but we got to come back to that later. Look at this battle coming down into turn 1 as Bouchard trying to take P3 away from Tuomi, and he's very close to doing so. Great exit off the chicane. It's going to take a brave one to go on the inside of 3 or 4 rather, and he's not able to do it.
Call it turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. They're all very similar speed in terms of rolling it through the apex. Turn 4 is a little bit faster than the other corners, but it's easy to get too happy with the right foot right there. And like we're seeing already, I think Bryden Thomas spun it around as well as one other car through that infield section here. Because it's medium speed, you want to get on the gas, but it's so easy to break those rear tires loose in these machines.
Speaking of which, that's exactly what Thomas did. If you're noticing, he's out of position compared to before. He went off coming through that 4-5 sequence and is paying the price now. Seeing if he can at least get one back as he's on the attack with Parcher. Parcher doesn't fight it. He allows him through.
Nice move there on the back straightaway, and a little bit fast there. And can he get it slowed down for turn number 12? No, as long as he avoids the tires and gets it back on the pavement, you will continue along. At least it was that version. If you go sending it too fast into that 9-10 chicane, you can actually meet that tire wall on turn number 12 exit too.
Exactly. And this is down the inside for Corsol. He's going to take 17th spot with that. Behind him, Cho going to lose another spot as Cole gets by in the number 30 into 18th. So definitely some opportunistic moves being made. Lyndon Cho still getting back in line, not giving up yet.
And remember, we're not even on lap number 5 yet, so these drivers, they're still so closely packed together. I guess the top 3 have kind of spread out, but we've got, 4 huge packs of racers right here in this battle for what is 17th place. I'm going to call it pack number 4, but it just kind of blends all together here up onto this back straightaway. Ryan Vargas sitting in 10th place. He's starting to make his way up through the field, too. We can recognize that name, Joe.
Yeah, I've got to call races alongside Ryan, and he's a very experienced stock car driver. Although right now he's going to have to work hard to get by Ryan Campbell, who is that red and white machine you see in front of him. He pokes his nose out. Is this enough to try and send it up the inside into the Shelton chicane? Nope, doesn't look like it this time.
And since you had mentioned Shelton, and Monty Shelton, I just want to give a little bit of a Northwest nod here. He was sitting in my brain the other day. Gary Bachman, who's no longer with us, but Gary has done such a tremendous job for everything at Portland International Raceway. It wouldn't be right to have a race here without mentioning Gary Bachman, so always thinking about you here, bud.
Yep, that chicane, not at least I haven't found any maps officially name it that, but it is recognized widely. Oh, there's a big hiccup there off the corner in the background. You can see Vargas is going to get that spot as we switch now to Bradshaw, Worley, and Schroeder. This is for 6th position. Alec is going to be able to defend that successfully down into the final chicane as Worley continues to hound him around the last couple corners. Still plenty of racing left to go, as you said. We're only starting lap 6 now.
You can see how fast-paced this racetrack is, though. It just constantly clicks off the sectors. You only slow down, like I said, maybe a couple times per lap, but even then, it's very fast and flowing for these chicane sections. So it's easy to get on the back foot, especially turns 4 and 5 right here. So I think through this first, call it half of the race, drivers just need to get in the rhythm. Cam Iverson looks like he missed the break point there in turn number 1, had to skip through the middle.
That gives a chance for Dave Corsol to get another one, up to 16th for him. So Mikic in the 14th spot, just in front of them. Boy, we got a whole line of cars here. That's Ledusser, Toomey, Mikic, and Peterson, all trying to vie for P12, but it's a much better launch for the 51 car, and he starts to pull away.
It's all about that acceleration down the back straightaway, right on board here with Thomas Spec Miata guy, just right on the back of Dan Toomey back here. Thank you for letting us know how to pronounce that one, and especially since we got 2 Toomeys out here, Dan and also another one, but come out onto the back straightaway here, and you see Dan really stand on the gas there, start to accelerate away from this number 92 car, but got to take it easy on those rear tires. You still need them for the next 20-plus laps.
Campbell moving backwards a bit. Remember, he just got passed by Vargas. Well, Mosteller or Marsteller is the one that just went by in the blue and white 11 car. So that moves him up into the top 10 and Campbell out of that top 10. And that train of 4 that we were just talking about is actually coming up behind him relatively quickly. There you can see them in the background.
So this is watching Ryan Campbell and Brian Marsteller out here. So Brian is in that white and turquoise car, as it looks like we've got a position change up here. It looks like Alec Bradshaw maybe slipped up through turn number 7, and Max Schroeder as well as Max Worley were able, or I'm sorry, Ryan Worley were able to kind of scoot by Alec Bradshaw there. So hopefully he's got everything cool, calm, and collected now and can start another lap.
We could get a replay of that pass because I think there was a little contact involved in it, allowed Ryan through. Either way, that is going to get him into 7th. Schroeder, the next car, up the way. And it does seem like Ryan's got this well in hand. He's climbed up. No, excuse me, he's lost 3 positions. So he has actually gone down from where he started, but has been doing a good job of trying to recover as the car just is getting a little bit unhappy at this stage.
And since you had mentioned, drivers that are kind of comers and goers out here, is speaking at least inside the top 10. The biggest mover is definitely Scott Toomey. Let's check out this replay of what happened to Andrew Johnson. This looks like it's going to be down into the first chicane here. A little bit of a lockup and tagged that inside wall. And I remember when I was racing Spec Miatas, a lot of drivers weren't even using that interior curb area, and it's worth a lot of speed. I remember at least in the Mazdas, you could almost keep it in 3rd gear, and as long as you kind of avoided that concrete wall on driver's right, you could pick up a ton of speed. So right idea, just the execution wasn't quite there.
Street course like there. Meantime, look at this, 2x2 down the back straightaway. And unfortunately for Sancinelli, he seems to lack some speed. Parcher gets by, and now Bergeron does too. Might lose a 3rd one. White thought he could get his nose in there, but gets chopped off at the apex. 6 cars, make that 7 actually, nose to tail, coming onto the main straight to start lap 9.
Yeah, this is a huge scrap, and they're scrapping for, what is this, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th? I mean, there's 7, 8 cars locked into this battle here, so looks like we've got a couple diving down deep on the brakes as long as they get it slowed down at apex, which all of them do. Nice job and room given between everybody. I'm starting to see a lot of these cars, though, in that acceleration phase as the drivers roll onto the throttle. The rear end is starting to kind of yaw out even more, so you're going to have to be patient as this race goes on with that accelerator.
There's so much tails wagging out on the track right now. White actually think lost a position there to Rip, who snuck through, although Rip's a little bit wide. That'll put him on the inside. Question is, can he get his foot down coming off the corner? You can see the war wounds on the right rear of his car. They have been getting elbows out here as he has to cut across the track. Is that going to be a slowdown penalty? No, I guess it's nope. He's got a slowdown penalty, and now he's having to give it back.
Oh, that is so unfortunate. I'm going to have to talk to the iRacing folks about a slowdown off of the end of the back straightaway there, because as far as I'm concerned, Joe, there's pavement. I can drive on it.
Right. And anything that is there, you can use it, especially when it comes to the way NASCAR tends to police these things. Meanwhile, Thomas, as we watch from on board him, Rip says, I want that one right back. Can he get it slowed up in time? He does. Takes a very alternate line up through the chicane. And in front of them, spinning around, that's going to be White facing the wrong way until he gets the car burned up and on its way.
And unfortunately, Bryden Thomas spins it himself going into turn number 4. So we had 2 of those cars that were locked in, call it that 7-car battle that just kind of made a few silly little mistakes there to open up lap number 10 and kind of drop them down through the order. So this 3-pack that we're watching is the battle for what is 5th place, being led by Eric Johnson Jr. in that, call it blue and black number 5 car. Max Schroeder giving chase, really pressurizing him on this front straightaway here. And then Ryan Worley, that red and black themed car.
Let's not forget that it's $500 to the winner on this one. Brennan Gregg still sitting up at the top, but it's about by 2 seconds right now. Look at how he's having to wheel it as Eric Johnson is definitely sawing away coming off the chicane.
getting a lot of pressure, and you saw Max Schroeder really kind of poke the nose down to the inside of turn number 4. I think that's totally fair game, and I think you can go too wide through turn number 4. You'll cost yourself a little bit of time, but usually that high line prevails, at least if they're not all the way up to the door. But turn number 7 here, this is so important, and crucially, it looks like Eric Johnson was able to put the power down. It was actually Schroeder that struggled, so Worley in that black and red 22 is going to be taking a look down the outside here. It's so tough with that long bending straightaway, as well as going by a lapped car on driver's right.
Yeah, it looked like he had to get out of it, or else it was drifting off into the grass. So I'm checking the lap times here, and it does look like they might be about a second off of what they started, and we're not even to the halfway point. I kept wondering if trying to pit while it was green was a viable strategy. I don't know if I would risk it, but the longer this goes on, it seems like they're losing more and more pace out there.
If I'm going to put on my my strategy hat over here, I think they have to burn off more. I don't think 1 second per lap is enough on a road course setting. I think it's got to be more like 2 seconds or even 3 seconds a lap. And typically here in iRacing, we don't see that sort of fall off. It's tough, Joe. Portland International Raceway does have a relatively short pit lane, so if you're thinking about doing it, yeah, it's a good racetrack to throw that option out there, but you got to hope others are thinking the same way.
True, yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be a real difficult time. And, of course, you'll wind up a lap down pretty easily out there. Worley still chasing on Schroeder and Johnson, and still unable to get to the spoiler by the time they get to the final chicane. But, boy, is he strong under braking coming into these last couple turns. We hop on board with the number 22, watching them all try to get the throttle to the floor, counter steering on his way onto the drag strip.
Yeah, but Max is right on the bumper, Eric, and now he pops out driver's right just a little bit deeper, and it looks like he is going to grab this position. A little bit of a right front lockup, but gets the car crucially stopped there at turn number 2, and just a little bit of wag of the tail coming out there. So move Max Schroeder up inside the top 5. He's got about 2.5 seconds up the road to try to go catch Scott Toomey. And since we were mentioning kind of the strategy with these tires and whatnot, at least if these cars fall in the same line that all of the other stock cars do on iRacing, tire management is so key with these stock cars. You'll see a lot of drivers purposely drive slow in these first 7 laps because the pace will be there on the other side of it.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about some of those that seemed like they were just kind of tiptoeing around there at the start, if that's what they were doing. That was a great move from Max to get himself into 5th. Certainly seems like his are in good shape. What about Eric Johnson? Are his starting to fall off, because now he's lost a position and he's not out of the woods because Ryan is still right there.
You got to remember that Eric is real-world driver, currently competing in that ARCA Menards Series. I think he was just down there in Phoenix. I believe he was running the West Coast stuff as well as some other additional events. So really cool to see him kind of put on this event and really kind of put Portland back on the virtual map, if you will. So big shout out to Eric Johnson Jr. for being a big part of why we're doing all this tonight.
Yeah, and let's not forget, they were calling this the inaugural one, so we could see more of this as they get more lap traffic down to the inside of turn 6. Not many places for poor Troy Olason to go, just trying his best not to interrupt this. The 5 looks at sneaking his nose in, but Johnson can't do anything. In fact, that compromises his exit. That may have been a poor decision. Here comes Worley back at him.
Yeah, so Ryan's going to go out driver's left, and he's already by him, and you can just see these cars without cooperation on the back straightaway. It can be very tough to make that pass, and then actually Eric almost gets rear-ended from Alec Bradshaw there into the brake zone off of the back straightaway. So, Joe, to your point maybe a minute or so ago, I do think that Eric is starting to struggle on that set of tires.
3 wide up into turn 1. Max has gotten that spot. Is he going to have to give it back right away? He has the inside. The 22 going to make him work for it, and he'll hold on at least for now. Things getting aggressive in this group, and I have to say I'm impressed with the way that Ryan has been handling this battle.
And take a look at that fourth car in line, Alec Bradshaw. That's the white and blue number 42 with the yellow highlights there. He's been making some extremely aggressive lunges in the brake zones, locked it up in turn number 9, locked it up again in turn number 4, but his last lap time significantly faster. No, there goes the 17 of Schroeder. He just blew turn number 7, and Bradshaw now right into the back of Max. I think he just wanted to get him going, but probably would have been better to go around.
Had no place to go, unfortunately. He picked the left side, and by that point, the gap had closed. He didn't want to go onto the grass, understandably so. And that cost him so much momentum. But that worked out best for Ryan Worley. He is now the lead of the group. Let's see if he can run away now that he's got that 5th spot. And next up the road is going to be Scott Toomey in that 24. About 3.5 seconds ahead of him. Troy Olison having yet more problems at the final couple corners.
I had mentioned that maybe Eric Johnson's tires were starting to burn off, but I think this is kind of the part of the race that having a lot of that real-world race experience pays off, where you just have to be consistent. Let everybody else go out there and maybe overdrive it as you're trying to manage your stuff. Because remember, Eric was passed by multiples of those cars, and then it just all kind of unraveled directly in front of him. And Ryan Vargas is another great example of that. Remember, he qualified outside of the top 10. And he has just been chugging along, and here he finds himself up in 9th.
Yeah, Vargas having gained 4 from where he began. As we check out Cole Raz, that's Corsall that's trying to fight him for that 16th position. Iverson directly in front of him. I think Iverson may have gotten a spot this lap, actually, and moved himself into 15th. That now is a lapped car just in front. Garski does a nice job of allowing them through without causing much headache, at least for 2 of them. Last one, Dave Corsall, has a bit of a harder time. 76 still applying pressure to Iverson.
It's all about that launch out of turn number 12 and onto the front straightaway, but looks like Cam Iverson and that bright purple machine does a nice job to keep Cole at an arm's length distance there. And let's check in on our leader. This is Brennan Gregg, who has really had no problems at all out front. However, that yellow number 70, Aaron Smith, has just kind of been keeping him honest back there. He's only about 1.3 seconds back. He was as big as 1.8 seconds back. So I think that Aaron is definitely doing a good job to make sure Brennan stays on it. No, looks like Max and Eric came together there at turn number 7.
He gets it turned around, but there goes all that hard work. Yeah, to your point, Smith, the previous 2 laps, was a total of 0.4 quicker than Gregg. So he's been running him down. Let me see what this lap looks like between them. 14.1 for Gregg, a 13.5. So yeah, a ton gained on this last lap by Smith. He's on the charge. Wow, Vargas gets a power slide in front of him as he gets a front row seat to the show. Is that going to be enough to give him a chance in the 1?
Hard on the brakes right here into the first chicane. You already see a little bit of the damage on the back end of Eric's car after that little bit of a turn 7 incident. So Ryan Vargas is kind of next in line to try to take a chomp out of that bumper, out of that blue and black number 5. Number 2 on timing and scoring, but painted is the number 5. I think that Eric's been doing a really good job. Same thing with Ryan. I think if I'm looking at inside the top 10 at drivers that are at least moving forward, obviously Scott Toomey grabs me with that huge move down in turn number 1 on the opening lap, but these 2 drivers that we're watching, very consistent so far.
A very good sign. Behind him, Bradshaw's still keeping Vargas honest. We're now past the halfway mark, so if you've been managing your tires, you might want to start using them at this stage and burning up your stuff to charge forward here at the end. Certainly seems to be what Vargas has been doing, as he's got good pace. And can he overtake Johnson, his fellow real-world driver? Marsteller behind them, another one of those that is getting the throttle down as soon as possible. Bradshaw with a slide is vulnerable to Marsteller. Coming into the braking, Brian gets the apex away from him and moves himself into 8th.
Brian, a very accomplished road racer up in the Pacific Northwest and kind of throughout the West Coast, and not surprised to see him work his way inside the top 10 as well. He started way back in 16th, but road racing is definitely his thing, so good to see Brian definitely work his way forward. He's got Ryan Vargas directly in front of him. That's going to be a tough customer to pass, but he is definitely in good company right now with, call it 12 laps remaining, roughly.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, having Vargas there is definitely a feather in your cap with the accomplishments that he's had. Aaron Smith, ooh, wow, okay, it's down to half a second now to Brennan Gregg. I don't think that $500 has been decided yet.
And for all you that don't know this driver that we're riding on board with, Aaron Smith, he's very, very good in every single stock car you put him in. You know, I have the fortunate opportunity to run all the Roush Performance Esports events, and he just won our Roush Performance Esports Roundy Round series with RFK Racing. So Aaron's coming off of a stock car championship just a week ago in a different league, in a different series. And I think the name of his driving style is management. He didn't really push the issue in those first 15 laps, and we talked about saving your tires. Right now, Aaron Smith has the fastest car on the racetrack.
In fact, he set his personal best fastest lap that last time by at a 13.4. So yeah, he's as quick as most everybody else was at the start of this race. I think you're right about him managing. He is unleashing this thing now.
And that comes just with practice time. You know, Aaron's a 6,000 plus iRating driver, and here in iRacing, how you kind of judge the skill and speed level is the driver's iRating, and it's earned through the official races that you go and do. And basically, I'm stuck at, what, like 1,400, 1,600 or something. So Aaron is, at least in the sim, you know, at least 4 times better than me, probably 10 times better than me, honestly.
And is really showing it today. He's sticking with Greg as much as possible, but I wonder if now we've got Brennan. Yeah, Brennan's seen what's happening. He's picked it up. He's down to 13.7, 13.6, so he's been forced to turn up the wick, if anything, and try to drive away from his rival. He wants no part of this battle. They're coming up to Chris White ahead of them, so lap traffic could play a factor. Who's going to get the luck of the draw?
And let's just think about what you said, right? It's forcing Brennan to go faster. If he's already starting to slow down based off of tire wear or just based off of pace, whatever it is, and now you've got Aaron Smith in your mirror forcing that pressure on you, forcing you to go faster, forcing you to burn your tires a little bit more, it just falls more and more into the hands of that yellow number 70. We're going to see what Brennan Gregg is made out of, see if he can hang on for 10 more laps for this win.
The other impressive thing about these two, it's 10 seconds back to Bouchard in third place. So
and then another 10 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry. No, 10 seconds. Yes, I'm sorry, Joe, for interrupting you.
It's okay. Yeah. Regardless, yeah. I mean, the rest of the field just has no answer for them.
You're right. Head and shoulders above the rest. The last lap times out of our 2 leaders, a 113.6, call it, and this driver that we're watching, Chris Bouchard, a 114.3. So, yeah, you guys do the math.
It's not our strong suit. Like, we know that much. And Bouchard not too far ahead of Scott Toomey, who made that brilliant move and then kind of throws it away down into turn 7 as the car snaps from underneath him. Watch out, because in his mirrors, the red and black 22 of Ryan Worley is suddenly appearing.
Yeah, he's right there, so going to have some company on his hands. Just like Eric still has Ryan Vargas in the mirrors. Ryan pulling out drivers left, but as we've kind of seen, without cooperation down the back straightaway, it can be really tough to draft by somebody. Drivers right is the shortest distance around that arcing back straightaway, so pulling out drivers left is not going to power by them. It's an interesting situation with these ARCA cars.
Makes for a fascinating dynamic, for sure. Vargas, I don't think we'll see anything down into turn 1. Hasn't looked like he's trying to get over aggressive at this stage of the race. And yeah, he's just going to play patient, especially because they still have Bradshaw not too far behind them. If they start battling, they're going to find themselves with a friend very quickly.
Definitely got him only about 1.1 seconds back there. You see him call it half a corner behind this pair right here. So, but Ryan has his head on his shoulders in terms of that black and red number 67 that's pictured on the side of the car. So I think that when the opportunity is right, he'll make a move on Eric. It's just got to be the right time, the right opportunity. And Eric much more shallow into turn number 7, but was able to put the power down good enough out of that corner to keep Vargas behind.
He's gaining on him, but it's a very swift chicane, this last one, so not enough braking. Even these big, heavy cars down into that left-right sequence. So they'll try again later. Once again, very different lines between them coming off of these corners onto the longer straights, which is kind of interesting.
It's a fixed setup, right? And so I think that each driver kind of has their way to approach how they want to drive around these big, heavy stock cars on this road course. Lots of point and shoot is very common to try to save that rear tire. But everybody's going to be a little bit different. And Joe, let me tell you something. As we watch this battle, our lead is officially on, only about 2 car lengths between the two of them.
It is getting ever so close up at the top. Watching Vargas now with his camera, full focus, with the hands moving around quite a bit there at the bottom of the screen through some of these corners. And look who's got up to him. Bradshaw's right there as well. Well, he was. And then he got a snap of oversteer coming off of turn 7. So that will release Vargas at least temporarily.
Just see the concentration out of Ryan's face here, looking at that brake zone. Get into the left-hander, hit the apex of the right-hander, go all the way out on that access road. You see how much wider Ryan really opens up the beginning half of turn number 12. And Eric does a terrific job to square up the back half of the corner. You think you really want to open up the front half, and usually you do, but seems like Vargas has mastered the beginning half. Eric has mastered the other half.
Let's check in on that battle for P1. 0.2 of a second now. Right there on the bumper. In fact, nearly gets to him coming into turn 7, but it's the corner exit that counts. Greg knew that, and he nailed it.
Nicely done. And now Aaron's just got to sit there in the slipstream, kind of reduce that gap a little bit more down this straightaway here. Fling it through this fast chicane complex off of the back straightaway, and Aaron really confident on the turn 12 entry there, closed in about 1 car length, but once again Brennan able to capitalize on that corner exit. Looks like Ryan Worley finally is able to make his way up into 4th by Scott Toomey.
The wild thing is that that's just back to where Worley started this race, as the tail whips back and forth coming off of the final turn. A lot of hair-raising moments in this one. I do love how entertaining these cars are to watch, but kudos to all of our drivers. They have been taking these things that are a handful and just really manhandling them out there. So I have to ask, since you seem pretty familiar with Aaron Smith, if he's able to get that $500, what do you see him spending it on?
Oh, man, probably annoying me for some prizes from the Roundy Round series that I still owe him. That's probably what he's doing. No, I think that Aaron is always looking forward to the next bigger and better race. But, I mean, first off, in order to get that $500, Joe, he's got to find a way around Brennan Craig. And Brennan's been the class of the field. Remember, he was our pole sitter. He's led every single race. And even though I've been talking up Aaron Smith in that bright yellow number 70, he still has to pass the fastest car and driver today.
Oh, so close, and he's starting to run out of laps to do so, but we're checking back in with Johnson. He's been overtaken by Toomey, he's been overtaken by Worley, but Vargas has not been able to get by in Bradshaw. Both of them stuck behind that number 5 up to this point.
I think that Eric's done a terrific job. I think that he has constantly had pressure in the rear view mirror all race long, and he hasn't cracked. Remember, we've seen other drivers maybe make a move or make a lunge and get by this blue and black number 5, but it's only been a quarter, maybe a lap or so later that they make a mistake, and Eric just drives right on by. So Joe, what do we call it? Sometimes you just got to keep on swimming.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Dory maneuver. Oh, this is going to be a bit of an aggressive maneuver from Vargas to get to the inside down at turn 4. He's there. He's at the door panel, but he hasn't completed the job. Both of them trying their best to retain position. Coming up to the left-hander of turn 6, one of the few left-handers that you have on this track. Still neither willing to give way. Bradshaw trying to figure out who he needs to throw his hat in with. And coming off of turn 7, he gets it done. Vargas gets P6.
Vargas just barely cleared Eric on the exit of turn number 7, and I actually think he was trying to leave him a lane, and Eric might have been trying to cross over and under, but you just see the smile out of that driver right there. He, he lost a position, but he was just so happy to be duking it out, and I think that's what all of these drivers are. They're happy to be at Portland, their home racetrack, and they're having a blast out there.
Oh, he's having a hell of a time. I'm pretty sure that Vargas is too. That was great racing between the pair of them, coming up through 4, 5, and 6. And incredibly, Bradshaw was not able to pick that up, although that lapped car is in an awful spot there for Vargas. And that actually offers an opportunity for Alec instead. Still nothing doing as Johnson will rebuff him.
So we've got, call it 2.5 laps remaining for our leaders as this 3-car battle continues to rage on. Ryan Vargas now leads the trio. Eric Johnson, as we've seen in that black and blue number 5. Oh, getting the nose right in there to turn number 6. That can be a moment that you can kind of loosen up that car in front of you. And now Ryan is stuck on the defensive. Both cars nice coming out of turn number 7. But yeah, the momentum, if anything, goes to Bradshaw.
Thought he was going to get pinched up to the wall there coming onto the back straight, and I think that forced a lift out of him because he's now falling back off of Johnson Jr. So he'll stay in 7th for the time being, but things unraveling a little bit for the blue number 5 car. Onto the main straight they go. This is one of the weaknesses of Bradshaw. He always seems to lose a couple car lengths on him.
I was always told you got to drive slower to go faster. It can be so easy to overdrive the car, and I'm not trying to hand out advice at all, but especially in the sim, that the limits can be quite tricky to work your way up to. Oftentimes you can just kind of skip right by them. Sometimes driving slower makes you go faster.
I can get what you're saying. Sometimes it's hard to tell myself that, though, when I'm in the car, wanting to push as hard as possible. And this has been such a fun battle. Down to 2 laps left to go. In fact, I think the white flag getting ready to come out for our leaders now.
Yeah, they are out onto the front straightaway right now. So about 2 miles, 12 turns left for Brennan Gregg here in this white number 27. He has held off the onslaught from Aaron Smith in that bright yellow number 70 machine. The sand in the hourglass is running out. Aaron Smith is running out of opportunities to try to steal this one away.
There's just not many places from here. Smith maybe has turn 7, possibly coming into the chicane at the end of the back straightaway, but he's going to have to be aggressive in either case, and he's definitely going to have to be closer than this.
Yeah, but he was carving that curb through turn number 5 very nicely. Gets the power down out of turn number 6. Once again, we do have a lap car directly in front. It's going to have to be a mistake out of Brennan Gregg through turn number 7, but guess what? That does not happen. Looks like the lap car is aware of the leaders. He's going to stay well off of the racing line. It's up to Brennan Gregg to stay mistake-free for 3 corners.
Half a lap to decide a cool $500 today. Who is going to come away with it as they enter the last few corners? Gregg holds the upper hand. Smith could try and launch off the line a little bit better than him. Looks like he's got a good exit, but I don't think it's enough, and the car just doesn't have it in him. Brennan Gregg is going to survive the onslaught to take the win.
Nicely done right there from that driver. Pole position, led every single lap, had intense pressure from Aaron Smith the last third of the race, but he hangs on for the victory. And then Chris Bouchard right here in this white number 28 rounds out our podium.
And Vargas, I think, is going to be our biggest mover, up 8 positions in this race from where he started in 13th. Excellent job as he crosses the line and wraps that one up. It was close, though, between himself and Thomas in the 92 machine, who was up 7 in this race. Doesn't mean anything other than a bit of pride as Johnson finishes up his race as well. And where does he come away with, actually? 7th, it looks like.
Looks like some drivers are having some fun after the checkered flag. Don't worry. That is a completely normal thing here in iRacing. And while we're winding down, I saw a couple names over there watching the race. Big shout out to the Sutherlands, Ken and Carrie, going back to my Spec Miata days. So nice to see some familiar names watching us out there tonight.
And that is going to wrap up the inaugural Portland Virtual Grand Prix. And let's take a look at how those results wound up, with our winner, Brennan Gregg, unofficially taking home $500 over Aaron Smith. The gap at the line, 0.2 of a second. Couldn't have asked for much better, as Chris Bouchard will wind up on the podium in 3rd. Ryan Worley finished where he started, but that was not the entire story. That was an impressive run back through the field. Scott Toomey was 5th, as Vargas finished in 6th. And it was Eric Johnson P7, Bradshaw 8th, and Schroeder 9th, with Leducer rounding out your top 10.
Then in 11th place is the other Toomey back here, Dan Toomey, followed up with Spec Miata driver Thomas Misich back here in 12th. Cole Raz going to be finishing in 13th place, with Marshall Peterson back here in 14th. Brian Marsteller finds his way up into 15th. Dave Corsell in 16th. Ryan Campbell, 17th place finish. Cam Iverson in that bright purple machine, who could miss him out there, in 18th. Jean-Philippe Bergeron in 19th, and then Zachary Jankelson in 20th.
21st is going to go to Justin Parcher, with Isaiah Gill being our last one on the lead lap in 22nd. Actually, not a bad job considering how tough these cars are, that we had that many finish on the lead lap. Edgar Sancinelli, a lap down in 23rd. Lennon Cho, 24th. White, 25th. And Thomas in at 26th. And it was Rip and Weint in 27th and 28th. 2 laps down for Olesen in 29th. Same thing for Garski in 30th.
Then in 31st, we had Andrew Johnson back here a couple laps down. Nate Garski, unfortunately, the first of the cars that had some problems. And then comes the rest of the cars that did not finish today's race, including Don, Dustin Mitchell back here, Tanner Reif, and Henry Tabor. So a lot of good fun for the inaugural event of what I hope returns next time out, because this was just so much fun to watch out there with these cars. Joey, I mean, does this live up to your experiences with Portland? I have to say, I'm so glad it's been brought to the service after seeing races like this. Well, look at that highlight right there in the turn 1-2 chicane on the opening lap. I think that should answer your question. Yes, I'm thrilled to have Portland International Raceway here in the virtual world. I just got to figure out a way to get my little Spec Miata on it. I know that there's the MX-5 Cup cars, but that's not the same as 127 wheel horsepower of Fury going down, setting track records here in Portland, living out my glory days from a decade plus ago.
Exactly. We'll see what we can arrange to try and make that happen. But first, let's talk to Brennan Gregg, who came away with the victory. Brennan, that was some amazing pressure that you were standing up to, especially right at the very end. At what point did you feel like Smith was going to be trouble?
Man, I saw him starting to pull back in probably after that lap, I think 13 or 14. And then once it was down to about 0.2 a lap, I was getting really concerned. And then once it kind of equalized at about, I think 5 or 6 tenths, I thought it was over. But I guess luckily I just hit my marks and made it to the end in front.
It did look like tire management was kind of one of the aspects. There were a few laps there in those early stages where a lot of you guys were running 114s. And then as soon as Aaron caught you, you were suddenly able to hit 113s. Were you finally kind of unleashing the car there?
Yeah, I was trying my best to save tires at the start of the race after I got that gap. And then, once Aaron started getting back up to me, I was trying to push the car a little bit harder than probably I should have. So, I was just, after a certain point, it was just overheating the rear tires. So I think most of us were keeping it, I guess, a little bit easier in the first part of the race.
I see you're one of the Northwest Club drivers. Where do you hail from? How close are you to Portland?
I am from Vancouver, so I'm about 20 minutes away from the track.
That is fantastic, and I'm honestly extremely jealous. You should be proud of the performance you put on today. Congratulations, and enjoy the money.
Thank you so much.
That was Brennan Gregg, your victor here today. I believe Joey has caught up with Aaron Smith. It feels appropriate to let him chat with him.
Yeah, well, Aaron, talking to you over here in a different Discord booth for probably a few weeks straight now. Congratulations on the second place here at Portland.
Yeah, thank you.
So, obviously, I know you quite well from a lot of the stock car stuff that you do, but it was cool to see you out here road racing. What did you think of the Portland circuit and of course, this brand new ARCA car?
It was magnificent. It felt like a brick the entire time, but it's the miserable race cars that put on the best racing, and I'll die on that hill. At a track like this, you couldn't ask for much more.
It did put on some phenomenal racing, and I gotta ask you, typically watching you in the oval stuff, you're all about that tire management to make sure you've got the car towards the end of the run. Was that kind of your same strategy here today too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in those last 10 laps, I had all the rear drive in the world, and I lost it all when I locked up the rears going into turn 1, but I still had a run on them there. I only cut the grass once to get a 1X, and yeah, it was just one step too late, though.
Well, I know technically you don't hail from the Northwest, but you put on some great racing, so I think you're welcome with this group anytime. Thank you so much for coming out and racing. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah, I'd like to thank Eric Johnson for letting me run this thing. Letting in a couple exceptions. I know I wasn't exactly qualified to run this, but you can't keep me away from the stock cars on the road courses. But I'd also like to thank Sherwin Williams, Pacific Office Automation, Paul Davis Restoration, Key Property Service Inc., Valleyscapes Landscaping Solutions, Product 41, PT Autosport, and Momentum Brewery for their support getting this race all put together. And that was magnificent. I can't say enough about this. It was a great race. Brennan kept me on my toes, and that was awesome.
And if y'all are wondering why Aaron Smith is invited, that exactly is why. He is not only a fantastic driver, he lists off all of the people he needs to thank, including all of the local sponsors. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming out and racing with us, and we'll see you next time.
And thanks for having me.
Just a true professional there, and that was our second place finisher. Up next, we've got seventh place finisher, but more importantly, organizer of this event, Eric Johnson. Eric, welcome up to the booth, and I have to congratulate you, not just on a good finish, but man, you put on just an incredible show with this car and track combination. Thank you so much for inviting us, because we enjoyed it.
Oh, I appreciate it, really. I mean, I'm pretty just excited to begin with, just seeing that Portland's finally getting, the recognition that it deserves. I think just put on a lot of great events here and seeing a lot of it in real life, and it's done so much for me in my career. I just really feel honored to see this group of guys here all come together and help organize this event so that we can put on a show for the fans.
Speaking of putting on a show, talk to us about that battle with Vargas coming through 4, 5, and 6. We were on the edge of our seats, and we could see it grinning ear to ear the whole time.
Yeah, Ryan was a good sport. I knew he was being patient behind me, and I told him I appreciate it. I don't think I had just quite the pace that he did, and I appreciate him not using me up there, but just trying to make that thing as wide as I could. As he was saying, he was going to have nightmares of seeing Paul Davis on the back bumper as I like it. So, yeah, unfortunately, he snuck by me there, but tried to just make sure I kept the thing in one piece and got to the finish, so that was a lot of fun. Appreciate Ryan for that.
Now, you called this the inaugural event. Are we going to see this back next year, or can we even see maybe some more over the course of the year? Because, like I said, we just loved getting to call this one, and would love to be back.
Yeah, really what it comes down to is the Northwest has done so much for me, just being my home, and I've had a really unique opportunity to go do some racing now in the ARCA Series for Jerry Pitts Racing and race with a really special group of drivers. And so to share that opportunity and try to, mesh the two worlds has been something really fun. And I think these guys would, based off of the feedback I heard, be interested in doing something again. So the word inaugural there was definitely on purpose. I wanted to leave the door open. So I don't know. Race fans, you got to let us know down in the comments if you want to see this kind of thing again.
Well, I hope they comment how much they want it, because we're fans for sure. And again, thank you so much and congratulations.
No, I appreciate it. And I got to take a second to thank all of our partners that put this on us, especially Sherwin Williams for coming on board, Pacific Office Automation, Key Property Services, Product 41, and of course, Paul Davis there as Ryan will be thinking about for quite some time. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you for doing the broadcast.
So that was 7th place finisher Eric Johnson Jr., showing why he was racing in the real world with a pretty impressive run today and some great battles out on track, which is going to close us up here, Joey. But I got to say, I can see why the Northwest folks really love this place, because on the surface, it doesn't look like much. There's not a lot of elevation change. The overhead map doesn't look all that crazy, but then you see this racing and wow.
Well, and when you go there in the real world too, and you see the dramatic mountain skyline that's pretty much draping this place, it's a pretty phenomenal place to go to and witness it in person as well. But huge shout out to Eric Johnson Jr. for putting on this event. I mean, it was great racing for 30 laps around Portland. Saw a lot of familiar names. Even saw Kyle Keenan over there in the YouTube chat as well. Another familiar face who's now part of the NASCAR community, doing a lot of spotting out there. So really cool to come back to call it my roots after I've been away for a long time and help out with this one.
Well, we're going to just wrap things up here with a few thank yous of our own, especially to, once again, Eric and his whole team for putting this on, but also thank you to our team, Joey and Daniel, as well as Christian and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube so you don't miss a moment. Up next, we do have, in a couple days' time, the Sim Racing Republic going to the Nürburgring GP. That'll be Saturday, April 5th. So make sure and tune in for that. But be sure to check out our other broadcasts. And until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.